Start recording. And I know I got everybody on here saying mute your phones. The reason why I say mute your phones is in case of background noise. I don't want to mute everybody to cut out the background noise in case people want to chime in. So if you're ready to chime in, just unmute yourself. That way we don't get a bunch of background noise or humming and things like that. Hopefully y'all can hear me. Bert, I see you. Bert Davidson, how you doing? You can hear me? Yeah, there we go. See you, Steven. All right. Man, I messed this thing up. Somebody hit me up and said, man, your link's not working for the calendar thing. And usually it won't work if you have an event on your calendar in that time frame. So I thought that meeting being in there, I could just delete it and it would open up that link for the calendar app again. And sure enough, it canceled the meeting. Usually it asks you. Let me see. Hold on. I'm checking my emails too. Somebody mute their phone. Their computer. There we go. Man, I messed this up. There we go. We'll get some more people on here. I am going to record the session in case anybody needs to jump off. We got probably a third of the crowd that signed up on here already. I'm watching my emails because I'm getting people emailing me saying, hey, I shared the login and it's not working. So I'm going to keep an eye out on that. And I know I have a couple people I want to have chime in on here. I'm trying to see if they're in here yet. John Paul, I see you there, bud. Because again, a lot of these things, I want dealers to share ideas. I got some emails here on some dealers and wanting to bring up some topics, and I definitely want to hit and talk about them. I do want to bring up, and let me see here, a couple of things that's going on. Let me see, what do we got? We got 2 or 3 people. All right, or 2 or 3 more people on. So I did mess this up, and is Lee, you on the call too? All right. Well, we'll just start here. Hey, John Paul Strong, you're on, and I know I haven't hit you up prior to this or not. John Paul Strong with Strong Automotive in the marketing. And, again, when I have any kind of vendors or people on here other than dealers, I want just to see if there's anything that they're seeing in their trends that can help dealers or anything in their services. I know we had a couple people on saying they're offering certain free services for their clients and things like that. But John Paul, if you're on, do you mind? I mean, what kind of things are you seeing that's working at dealers right now, going through either having slower sales? We did have somebody asking about marketing and how to get more leads because their lead count is down. Traffic. This is from Lee Owens. He was saying web phone lot is way down. At the start, used was holding its own, but towards the end, March it tailed off. April has really tailed off. John Paul, are you seeing the same thing with traffic there? And there's anything that you guys know it's been kind of working for people?
Yeah, Jason, what we're seeing, and we see it in paid search demand across Google, we're seeing less traffic really everywhere. With the less traffic we're seeing, the good news, it's kind of a good news, bad news is you've got less traffic, but we're seeing desktop conversions at a almost double percentage. These were some numbers we looked at yesterday through the first couple days of April. Desktop is way up, mobile usage is way down, which, from a lead perspective is good because desktop represents a better qualified shopper. I've probably talked to 20 or so of our dealers today. We are seeing grosses very high. We are seeing the slowdown like you and I have talked about in the later model 17, 18, 19 used segments, but the value price stuff is flying out the door. And I think the biggest thing that we're doing, kind of the immediate phase for our company and our dealers, was the messaging around the fact that we're open or limited touch or basically still getting the messaging out there that we are selling and servicing vehicles, and here's how we're doing it. What we're really diving into now is working with our dealers to break apart their owner bases, find people that with these, 0 for 84s and no payment for 90 or 120 days, what type of customers by each store that represents that we can contact through email, through phone call, through direct mail. And it's a small number, but these are people that can come in, they're paying a high interest rate. They've been in their car for a couple years. Who can we, contact with a legitimate message, even though people aren't wanting to get out right now? But if you got out right now, you could lower your interest rates, you could lower your monthly payment, you could defer payments. That's really the next step in our overall strategy. Is we kind of, see less happening right now with the less is more approach to go after.
Yeah, the data mining. And I don't know, I just thought about, obviously data mining and working your service lane, but service lane is low now too. So, I don't know the expense factor. I know the expense factor, but, doing either free oil change or something just to get some traffic in the door. Because, right, how much would you pay to get a body on your lot right now? Is it worth the 25, 30, 40 bucks that it costs you for an oil change to maybe offer those free? And then, to your point, see if anybody wants to upgrade, get out of it, defer payments and stuff like that, to maybe drive some traffic. Any dealers out there trying anything like that with that's on this call right now, as far as service specials that might be working? Because again, I know guys pay a lot of money to get people on the.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
This is Steven Granger with Recall Rabbit. I was on a call last night with a bunch of fixed op folks, and one thing somebody mentioned on there that I thought, oh, that's a great idea, is kind of your same point, like the free oil change idea, but pushing out further. They're picking people's cars up and bringing them in for service and pushing that barrier further out. And their point was, look, even if I have to go 50 miles where I normally go 20 to get that customer in and get them engaged, it's worth it to us.
Yeah.
So just an idea.
No, and it is, and that's why, obviously at home delivery options, what John Paul was bringing up, be able to promote that stuff, tell customers what you're doing out there. Frank said on here, is it Frank Anderson? We're doing $10 oil change for healthcare first responder workers. You can see that's great stuff. And again, is that stuff and those messages out there in your marketing too? And I'm sure you guys done some social media advertising, and I've got a couple comments in here in the chat, and any of these guys feel free to chime in. But Bert, I'll bring you up, and Bert Davidson, I'll let him speak. I guess give us a background, let everybody know kind of where you're from. But you said you're able to get on a call with that Dale was hosting, Dale Pollock, yesterday, and he mentioned a couple things he'd like to share with the group. One thing before you do that, so before I forget, I wanted to pull up, and I think I have it here, because somebody here mentioned about wholesale or MMR. Somebody mentioned to me exactly they're not sure where to hit cars and where at MMR, back at MMR it should be and stuff. And yeah, that was Michael Davis. I hope he was able to make it. Cost to make, what's a good cost to market percentage appraisal now? How far back at MMR? Dale Pollock has a blog, and you could go check it out. I read it yesterday. He was talking about a big wholesaler, or big used car retailer dumped 700 plus cars. From my understanding, I think if you read through here, I think they had like a 50% MMR type floor on it, no reserve. And long story short, if you read through this, I think all of his cars and what the current MMR market seems to be going is what is 90%, basically 90% retention. So if MMR is saying 10 grand, they're at least bringing 9 grand. So all those cars, the 700, they sold a high percentage of them that were retailable or decent cars. And they're going for 90% MMR, if that's helpful. But yeah, please, let's have you chime in, Bert, on what you also wanted to add to that.
Yeah, so I'm a used car director for 4 stores, 2 in Ohio and 2 in Pennsylvania. Our Ohio stores are allowed to operate, the PA stores are not. And so I was on a 20 group call yesterday. I'm in a velocity 20 group.
Oh yeah, I know that.
And Dale was on that call, and a couple things that he mentioned, I took some notes. The two KPIs he said he would focus on are driving down unit count, and then driving down the average investment. So get rid of all your high dollar cars. What's amazing to me is I reduced my prices across the board in all 4 stores, and we do have a nice advantage where our PA stores are close enough to one of our Ohio stores that we could get those used cars over there to show. But I reduced everything to 90 to 91% of market at the end of March, and really, we've been kind of taking our licks on the high dollar cars, and for us, high dollar is 20 grand and up. And the thing that amazes me is that so many dealers haven't really changed prices. No. Because I set my cars at 91% of market, and I go into V Auto in the investment summary, and it's a straight line. It hasn't moved. I thought for sure that 5 days later I'd check and they'd be at 94, but shockingly, which kind of surprises me, because if you get rid of this inventory now, you can buy it for 85 cents on the dollar. So I don't know, that just kind of surprises me. I don't know when the rest of the dealer body is going to wake up and be like, holy crap, we need to get rid of these cars. But so far it hasn't happened. So if you're ahead of the curve, business will still be good, if you're allowed to operate at least.
Sure.
And business has been pretty good for us still.
Anybody want to add to that? We track out data for dealers. One of the things, now I'll just kind of throw something here just to kind of give you an eyeball, just so you kind of know how I'm referencing this. We will capture dealers' price to market by age buckets. And we're seeing, again, and we're looking at it every day, 94%, they're still at 94% on average. We're not really seeing, unless some dealers do some movements themselves, a lot of dealers, I said this on the last call, are kind of just like a deer in a headlight. Everybody's like, hold on, wait, let's not do anything. Don't drop prices yet. Let's see what everybody does. My guess is after a few weeks of this, us being car people are A-type personality, eventually we're going to get sick of sitting on our hands, and somebody in your market's probably going to do like you did, Bert, and drop their prices, and then you got to make sure you either catch up to them or kind of wait, and see if anybody else follows suit. But that's one thing that, I talked to another client of mine earlier. He was saying how, he might hold out. He's thinking, yeah, first the prices will drop, but if the market's there, then the volume's going to come back, and then the cars will be worth something, because the floor is already going to, let's say that's 90% MMR. Let's say you do take a $2,000 hit on a car right now. I don't think it gets much further below that. So what his point in this conversation, what we kind of alluded to, and I don't know if I agree with the strategy or not, because it's holding out and you're rolling the dice. But let's say we all take a $2,000 hit on our cars right now on average. Let's say a 10% or 12%. I don't think over the next 45, 60 days it's going to get much worse than that, to where it might be, to him, it might be worth holding out and seeing if instead of taking that $2,000 hit, he's breaking even, or losing 15 instead of 2, or 1,000 instead of 2. After the market kind of starts building back up. And so I think that floor is kind of there at some point. And maybe, the roll of the dice, I said, well, worst case scenario, once it hit the $2,000 drop, I don't know how much further it goes. You might end up losing 2,500 instead, which might be worth rolling the dice, or you can end up ahead. It's just speculation on the true volume that's sitting out there. Once the floors get released by the dealers and the rental fleets get released, and the people are starting to bid cheaper. But, that's one thought of maybe you hold out if the market does return. Again, let's say things open up in May. Everybody's slim, like you were talking about, Dale was mentioning, slim the inventory levels down. Everybody slims down. They don't overbuy. They just, whatever they sell, they try not to replace too much without trades. And then if the demand picks back up, then the volumes come back up, and then that's the time of the window that he thinks that he might be able to, save afloat a bit. A couple of metrics that I would say that you need to stay up on would be your price to market, just like you said, Bert, and then I would say market share, because that's the other thing we're talking about. I said the only way that you can maintain your higher pricing and not drop it down, like other dealers might drop it down once the doors open up to drive some traffic. He was thinking of holding that way. Once they sell their cheap stuff, the market comes back and the volumes are there. I said the only way you're doing that, though, the next thing that I would be looking at is obviously your market share, cross sell reports, and say, okay, am I fine holding out here? After the smoke clears, everybody buys the cheap stuff, and then volume starts building back up, and you maintain that higher thing. The only next number is if everybody's up 25, 30% and you're still not, you're probably going to have to adjust pricing to get that volume back going. Because he was saying, the volume won't be there just due to unemployment and the economy and other things, but you can't just assume that other people will start popping cars. You got to too. Anybody want to add to that or feed into that?
To your point with the bottom of the market, I've told my owner that, because I bought 27 cars, I think last week. I told my owner that, if I can buy $12,000 cars for $2,000 behind MMR and they're real cars, that's probably going to be the bottom. And I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine it going much lower. Now time will tell. Dale did say that, if you were a bird and you could fly over these auctions, they're having a real hard time storing all the captive and all the rental cars that have been held because of this. So that's the other thing is it's really just a hedge. It's like the stock market right now. I don't think anybody really knows what the bottom is. We can take a guess, but only time will tell. And then how are these captives going to dispose of this? Are they going to trickle this inventory out for the next 6 months and it's just going to be a slow slide, or are they going to release it, more in volume? It's going to be real interesting to see how they deal with this once the economy picks back up.
Well, and it's not just that though; it's the consumers. Consumers don't have to do nothing, right? And so if they're hesitant to spend any money above 10, 15 grand, no matter what gets flooded to the market or not, or what gets held back or what floors, if the demand's just not there, that's the real question. And that's, you just don't know if once this thing opens up, are people going to start running out like crazy and making up for time lost and buy a bunch of crap, or are they going to be very cautious? And going back to the recession time, man, people were really cautious for a long time. That's one of my points. I'm big on flat pricing. If y'all don't know, 2011, I started this push to price cars at 20 grand instead of 19,995. So for 8-9 years, I've been pushing this. The reason why you want a flat price, people, and it's going to be more important now, again, 20 grand instead of 1995, you get the 20 and higher shopper, the 20 and lower shopper. But people are going to be so payment and dollar oriented now. It was like that after the recession, and they kind of got away from it. But I think because again, it was good time, so people could be sloppy with what they're spending and how they're spending it. It's going to get tight again, and people are going to say, I can only afford $400 a month. What is that? It's 22 grand. 22 grand is a popular flat price because of a $400 payment buyer. So people are going to look at payments and dollar amounts. They get approved for their bank, and that's all they're spending on. This is all I got my budget, which is 18 grand, and they're going to search, 15 to 18 grand. And I think, understand and having payment options on your website, I think are going to be the biggest opportunities for people. The other thing that I mentioned, and I hate hugging this here, but I want you guys' feedback as dealers. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong on this. But I was talking to the dealer earlier, and I did a tip video that's going to be coming out soon. But I think CPO is going to be the next best thing, other than because here, you got to get rid of these late models. You don't want to have them, but if OEMs were smart, especially Ford and GMs that had to shut down production for a while, I think certified pre-owned is going to be a next way to get people into their vehicles. And I would hope that they would put some good incentives on CPO instead of maybe 0% or 1.9 for 36 months. They extend it to 60 months. Maybe do a defer payment type of option. And what's good about CPOs or the late models is one, you're not going to get somebody driving 100, 200 miles away from you to get that car, right? There's plenty of those type of cars out there. Can somebody mute their computer? I know we're getting some feedback here. Everybody mute the computer or their phone. So late models, CPO type cars usually aren't going to have somebody drive too far unless it's the white and tan, Cadillac Escalade or whatever. Two is if you get a trade, it's probably going to be a decent trade that's retailable. And three, it's obviously going to get your service work. So don't go for the money. Cheap sell the CPOs. But I think because of lack of production and all the attention that new cars will get with the incentives, CPO is probably going to be a strong alternative, especially if OEMs start backing it too. What are you guys' thoughts on that? You think that's something that would be pushed? Or is that kind of a too risky of a road to go down? Anybody want feedback on that? Frank, Art, you guys agree with that, or you think that's a little risky?
I think, we're Toyota, Chevy, and Kia. I think with Toyota, they're going to be smart and they'll up the incentives. And I was planning on carrying a little bit more Toyota inventory once things pick back up. We'll see. We'll see with some of the other brands that aren't, Kia doesn't really have a real good certified program, but I definitely think with the Highline brands and with Honda and Toyota, I definitely think that there's definitely some opportunity there. No doubt about it.
Yeah, this dealer I was talking to is a Ford store, and I think he said within something quick, either 60 days, he's going to be out of cars. There won't be any cars from Ford. So unless production gets kicked back up again. Mike Kavanaugh, are you on? I know you had limited time. You're from Max Digital.
Yeah.
You on?
Yeah, I'm on.
All right, I've been looking at the list and I didn't see your name, so I apologize. I know you sent me an email. I know you got to jump off real quick. Can you hit on, instead of me reading this? I mean, I think the last thing talking about Nick Johnson talking about price and drops, the definition of insanity. But can you touch on about the creditworthiness you talked about real quick and what dealers might need to be looking out for?
Yeah, so I've been talking to a lot of dealers lately myself and heard a lot of kind of concerns around this and how high unemployment, reductions in pay, reductions in hours for people, how that's going to impact creditworthiness. And then obviously, everybody on this call knows that if you start dealing with a much higher percentage of subprime customers, budget doesn't only become an issue, but certain lenders and their criteria, right, requiring a minimum of 10% down or more. APR is looking more like 18% for somebody with bad credit versus some of these very low single digit 0% financing deals. It's a whole different segment of customers, and subprime is already north of probably a third of the population. Maybe different by market, but how that's going to impact your inventory acquisition and pricing strategy. And I would love to just hear if anybody's thinking through that on the call right now, but that question's come up quite a bit lately as a concern because there's been pretty cheap money out there. Credit's gotten a little bit better over time. People have been working pretty well and had a decent chunk of change, but if they're making a lot less money, they're going to need a less expensive car. And if anybody remembers that post 08 time, those 10 grand and under cars were brought all the money for a long time. And I'm just curious what people are thinking about that in the market right now.
And with that, are you guys seeing less banks? Because I've seen headlines saying less banks are backing up subprime and kind of getting out of that market. And will it take a while for the subprime to come back after banks realize that most people are going to fall in that category and they want to take advantage of it? What are you guys as dealers, managers seeing about that right now? You getting banks dropping off? No? I see Bert shaking his head.
I don't. I mean, our biggest Kia store is a big subprime store. I haven't seen that happen, and I also think that, like today, I bought a 17 Subaru with a $6,000 spread between left side book and what I paid for it. So if anything, we'll be in a better LTV position than we ever were to the banks, for subprime. And it might be the new normal. It's my instinct to take that car back, not price it for 12 days and tell the Kia store to, make a home run on it. But the new normal might just be to make a deal on that car because there might be, another one right behind it, $6 grand behind book. So I haven't seen anything yet. So we'll see what happens, but it's still pretty early.
that's where cash is king. Is the old Foursquare going to have to make a comeback? And with your cash investment of, 10, 20% down, you're going to need to make sure these people probably have some money down. But also it came up because I did a lot of my retailing was on the internet. And a lot of times people with customers with bad pay wouldn't follow up with, bad credit. A lot of times if you got an app, they didn't follow up with them very well because of the bad credit situation. So, but I mean, to your point, could become the norm. And I remember in 08, 09, a lot of people that were 700s end up being 500s. The guys that used to were 700s making 150 grand a year, all of a sudden, making less than six figures and is a 500 all of a sudden. But it's the same person, and as long as everybody treats everybody right and equally, don't go it off a credit report because you don't know what kind of person you think you're assuming you're dealing with. So that was the other thing that we've seen. Speaking of loans, one of the good questions on here, Kavanaugh, I'd like your background, John Paul, your information, but dealers themselves. One of our dealers is, he asked about the SBA loans, again, specifically for dealers. Anyone having a plan in place don't want to just pay our people for doing nothing, but don't want to lose them either. I'm in that, and I bring up John Paul and Mike Kavanaugh from Max Digital and any of these dealers yourselves that are reaching out for this loan, this SBA loan, because I have, I'm waiting to hear back. And then, but the work's not there because dealers, we typically, a lot of my hourly people are touching photos and descriptions, and we've got every dealer's pretty much every inventory caught up. And usually the workload's there because if we touch 40 photos and descriptions, make everything standing tall, they sell and buy another 40 cars and we got to redo those, but no one's selling hardly any cars. So they're just kind of sitting around twiddling their thumbs. I'm like, well, I don't want to cut back their hours because they need the money. I don't want to get rid of them. Do I take this money and just pay somebody for doing nothing just to keep them on board? But any of you dealers or business people out there, what are you guys doing about that right now? If anybody wants some feedback.
Yeah, this is John Paul. We've been studying it pretty intensely. Nobody I know has gotten any money yet from it. There's a couple big things with it. It sounds all well and good, but for dealerships, I think the problem's going to be with it. There is a clock that starts. I think it's 8 weeks once you get the money to when you have to spend it all or get a penalty. But from the dealership angle, only 25% of it can go towards rent.
Yeah.
So the other 75% truly has to go to payroll, which if you're not busy, who are you paying to do what? And, the biggest thing I'm not worried about with it, it's, things sound too good to be true sometimes are. If you really do the math, which I rely on some people that did the math to fund all the small businesses that are going to apply for this, I think they said there are 275,000 small businesses have already applied. The number of amount of money that's needed to fund this is in the $1 trillion. Truly in like the $4, $5, $6 trillion. So, hope's not a strategy. Apply, get the money if you can. Know how you got to have a good strategy for what you're going to do because you've only got 8 weeks to use it. But the real challenge is going to be where does all the money come from to fund everybody who's getting in line for it is my thought. Now, our company's a little different because, our payroll is our biggest piece of it, but, that clock starting to tick from the day you get it to 8 weeks is how you manage it's going to be the mystery.
So do you pay? Has anybody on this call or that maybe is a dealer or manager at that level know if you guys submitted for it or received any of that? And are you using it to pay people, even if there's not much work for them to do, just to hold them out? Or is that going to be your plan if you do get it?
I know we submitted for it. I've talked to the CFO a little bit. I know it's in submitted. We talked about employees and just getting creative to keep them working. I mean, that might be painting an office. I mean, that's the one thing we've talked to our employees about is everybody's got a different job description right now. Like, I have I have certain hours where I'm on the internet leads, so I'm effectively a BDC guy. We've got a finance manager that likes to drive cars, so he's running cars to people's houses. And so, I just think that the communicating with the employees right now about how everything's kind of on the table, and my owner's done a really good job with that. He's said, hey, I'm and he's a younger guy, and I mean, he'll go back there and strip plastic off a car and hose a car down and get it ready for delivery. So he's kind of inspired the team to do whatever it takes, and so that is the nice thing. I think that the employees that are there will be happy to do whatever, to stay employed.
Yeah, no, that's the other thing, 'cause I thought about those things. Just social media. Maybe all of a sudden you didn't have that person for social media content and stuff. Well, give them a new title and let's start rolling down that path. So you get used to doing that kind of stuff and doing videos and touching base and reaching out that way. There's a process there and it's a learning curve. So maybe have that title there. Even internally, like I said, I overstaffed for our growth because we were growing 55, 65% every year. So I overstaffed, for our business. And I knew, at some point in time, their job description might change. And I'm like, okay, well, who likes doing social media? We need to do more Instagram. We need to do more of this. It's no different than a dealer does. Everything that I try to preach to dealers, I try to do internally ourselves. And so I was going to start making people, this was before all this happened. We just happened to have, a lighten up in some workloads that I was going to transition these people into. But give them new titles. But those are the things that you always wanted to do, just didn't have the time to do it. I've seen a lot of posts lately. Matter of fact, I don't know if he's on here, Brian Bice. I think you're saying you're changing out your DMS or something. A lot of dealers are switching out website providers and DMSs right now. Brian Bice, are you on the call? Because I know you mentioned that, and I sent you. I think you're going through a transition. But I've seen a post where guys are implementing services that they've always wanted to do. I talked to Rapid Recon a lot, Dennis there. That's a big ordeal to set up all your steps and your processes and figure out that flow. And that's hard to do when you're busy and doing good. So why mess something up? And we ain't gonna have time to do it. This is the time to do it. Create those roles. Let's see. Steven said we've applied for it, not received it. We plan on keeping everyone employed even if we don't get it. We need everyone here when it's over. Yes. And Granger, another one that came up was a gift certificates for first responders. COVID thought it was a great idea, so they had sold 5 the day they put an ad out on Facebook. So gift certificate for first responders, it drove some traffic. Jim said, anyone we haven't seen in 18 months, we're trying to call them and offering a free oil change to try to get some people in. Getting back to the free oil change. I did want to bring up Kim Reed, I know you've been on a couple calls and I hit you up earlier. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add. I know you're with Cox. Is there, and I want to give you a chance to chime in if you'd like, to see, I know you've sent some information about what Cox is doing. Is there things that you're seeing on your end, if you'd like to chime in, and or what are resources that Cox providing for dealers also?
Hey, Jason, thanks. Hey, everybody. Glad to be a part of these calls. I learn a lot every time. So, all of the dealers that are on Auto Trader or use pretty much the retail product should have gotten the email from Keith Jessic about the 50% off. And I just wanted to bring up to you guys that there's a really good source that you can use to go to, and it is the Dealer Learning Center on Cox. It does have that listed there in the letter from Keith, and you can also go to the Cox Auto Inc. newsroom to get the market insights and the latest information from Jonathan and the first quarter recap and things like that. A lot of that Jason's already covered. So we're doing our best, and I would encourage you to reach out to your rep if you have any questions at all. I've probably had more calls with my dealers in the last 3 weeks than I probably have in 3 years, just strategizing, trying to, help. but we're here to support you guys and help any way we can. So if I need to download demographic information for you, or go do some of that legwork where you can focus on selling cars, definitely reach out. Your rep will be more than happy to do that and jump in and help any way we can. One thing I do want to point out, I heard a couple of these guys mention, 08, and I was at Auto Trader back in 08. I've been with Auto Trader since 06, so I've been doing this a while. And so I remember that, and that was extremely painful. And we'll get through this. But one thing that we did back then to acquire inventory reasonable is we used Auto Trader to our advantage to buy cars from the private sellers. And you can go do searches on Auto Trader and filter just by private sellers only, and save that search just like they save your cars, and just like they get an alert whenever you drop that price 1%. Whenever they start dropping their prices, you will get the alert for that. So it's just an easy way. You were looking for something to do for some of your people, assign them out, certain pieces of inventory that you want to get, and have them responsible for those searches. It's just a good, fresh way that doesn't really cost a whole lot of money, to go find some new inventory out there in these lean times.
Yes, and that's what I pulled this up. One, I want to add to what you're saying about reaching out to your vendors. I probably said this on another call already, but if I haven't, or you haven't been on any other calls, man, when I was at the dealership, I wouldn't say I use and abuse my vendors, but when you're spending 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 grand with these companies, my Auto Trader rep, as a vAuto rep, I love the people that reached out to me and pushed me and always, hey, what do you got for me? What do you got for me? What are we doing wrong? What else can we be doing? But then there's the guys, the dealers that I've called and emailed and trying to get them on a meeting call once a month, and they're just ignoring you and won't be on. And use those vendors, man. They're there to help you. And it's kind of frustrating, as we help dealers, because again, we're talking to dealers all over the place, and like, oh, well, I'm going to cancel so-and-so. I haven't seen the rep in 8 months and we're really not selling anything. I'm like, well, shame on you. Why don't you call the rep up? Why didn't you see what you're doing wrong? Why would you let 8 months of money go to waste without reaching out to them? So use and abuse those guys. The people there are there to help you. You don't have to abuse them, but you know what I'm saying. Get a hold of them, ask them what they could be doing, get in the back end of the tool, learn how there's stuff in there that you might want to see. But yeah, get a hold of your reps. It is their responsibility to make sure they're taking care of you. We do weekly calls with our stores, so we know we're going to be they're scheduled weekly calls, so they're going to be there. But when I was on the vAuto, and it felt like I had to chase a lot of people just to try to help them out. It's kind of frustrating. And again, my best stores, the best performers are the ones that always hit me up. I'd get a call from at 7 o'clock at night, and I'd answer it because I want to show them that I worked when they worked. So do that. Before I forget, one of the things that I was thinking about doing, and I was going to pull all these raw numbers out, but we're talking about wholesale values and the fleet enterprise Hertz cars and stuff like that. I started playing around on their sites to go, okay, if they're gonna dump stuff, what are they gonna be dumping? And you guys can get in and maybe do, I don't know what mile radiuses I'm doing here, but if you go look at enterprise, for example, I mean, you could see 1,600 Fords, 1,500 Hyundais, but 3,200 Nissans. Then you take a look at these and you start digging in a little bit deeper to get to the models. And there's a lot of Rogues in here. Rogues is the biggest one. You got Sentras, Altimas. I would capture that information. I would be looking, and then look at the years and stuff that they have those on. The reason why is because these are the cars, if anything, that they're going to be dumping. I think Hertz had a majority of Chevys in their inventory. You can see 3,100 was the biggest. Hyundai, no, was Chevy was the biggest one. Then Toyota, Kia, pretty high. And again, go look at what Chevys are they carrying. A lot of Cruises. A lot of Malibus, 1,200 of them, a third of them are Malibus. My point is, if you have late model Chevy Malibus on your lot, and you have any of these competing in your market, or they come in with a sale list, or these are the cars these would be the ones I'd really be watching the big movements on, right? So I don't know how else. Maybe there's a resource out there that will show you this stuff, but I'd pay attention to the big rental car companies, see what's in the majority of their fleets, and especially if they're 18s and 19s, because they'll probably be dumping those soon. Because see, there's a bunch of 18s; those will be the ones they're probably dumping, and I would avoid those. What's that old saying? Like the plague. But yeah, I would avoid those cars. That's maybe a way. What do you guys think? I think that should be a good way to maybe kind of stay on top of what you want to get off of. Kim Reed's sending some links in the chat box here too for you guys for Cox Inc. All right, a lot of these calls have been going for an hour. So, real quick too, make sure that going back to photos, descriptions, all that. Right now, you're getting in the springtime. If you have the ability to get on your lot, get those winter photos gone. If you got backdrops, trees and stuff in the backdrop, snow, if you're in those kind of markets, if you can redo your photos, this is the downtime to do it. You could maybe wait another couple weeks and see once the leaves are blooming better, because if not, you probably, just like these cars down here with the bare trees in the background, in a couple months you're going to be able to tell these have been sitting for a while. So this will be a good time to get those snow photos gone and any of the tree backdrops and stuff like that caught up, and refresh your photos. Lot walk, do your virtual lot walk. Did I miss anybody that wanted to chime in on this call? Because I know, again, I had a couple. Ty, good to see you. Anybody wanted to chime in with something that they want to see if other dealers are dealing with themselves? And I got a couple of my guys on, Reswick, Anderson. Is there anything that you think these guys need to be hearing right now?
Good question. For those that are open, what are you guys seeing you're taking in? You saw new cars, taking in a bunch of expensive stuff?
Yeah, for you dealers that may be getting some new car activity, I would assume you get some decent late model trades. Are you seeing that right now? And I guess, Bert, you're being a Toyota GM store. You said that I know GM's doing some pretty big incentives right now. Are you guys getting
buying a previously owned vehicle at ID Ford Lincoln Mercury?
Oh,
We're making it easy by offering ID's exclusive risk-free used vehicles, which includes a 5-day money-back guarantee, the no-exception inspection by factory-trained technician,
right.
12-month, 30,000-mile roads.
There we go. I had to mute that. I'll mute everybody, so I have to wait to see if we can come back to chime in on that.
The state of PA.
Go ahead.
The state of PA shut our Chevy and Toyota store down, so we only have our Kia stores operational. I'm seeing the same kind of trades, no real change. We are seeing people that have to have a car rather than need a car. So the guy, I'm not seeing as many late model trades. And again, it's early; it's the beginning of the month.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing many late model trades as I am, and used cars. I mean, I'm seeing a lot more used cars. We've got more used cars sold than new cars at the Kia store right now, and usually they're neck and neck. So it's more I need a car versus I'm going to trade in the 2015 or the 2016 right now.
Did I see correctly? Did you guys, is it starting to open up in PA, maybe virtual deliveries? I thought I seen something today, a couple guys posting about the government or the governor making a little bit of moves, at least.
Not that I'm aware of, but I haven't talked to my owner yet today about that. So
okay, I know you guys are struggling up there. I like watching Bob Ruth Ford. He's staying on top of and complaining.
Oh yeah, he's on it, man.
Well, it's true. I mean, there is those needs, and you're seeing, companies like Carvana and stuff delivering in that market, and you guys can't deliver. That's kind of unfair. At least let you do virtual deliveries. Maybe not let you open the showroom, but can sell a car virtually. So yeah, those frustrations are happening. If anybody, because as this pandemic is phasing through the country, if anybody, is afraid they might get shut down or the government, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania and see what dealers are struggling with there and what they're trying to overcome with their government, because it's been a big battle. And I'm going to go here real quick because I know I keep forgetting. If you guys ever see this SICK map, a couple other outlining things. I'm hoping we hit this tipping point mid-April and it start going downhill. If you guys never seen this, and I just want to show you this real quick as a comfort, I think it's promising because you always hear nothing but bad news. Obviously, this, calculates everything and all over the world, but you see the trajectories here. But if you actually look at it in a daily increase for the United States, we're actually seeing a drop off, which is really promising. And the other part is the places like Italy and all the bad things you hear about what's happened there. I mean, check out their drop off. I mean, they're to the point to where they were almost a full month ago. So they're definitely going backwards. They've hit that peak and moving. Even Spain, who has the second most, again, they hit their peak at the end of March and they're back down to almost a month ago levels. So it seems like if you take a peek at some of this stuff, to me, it just gives me hope that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and we're starting to see our drop off. It might take another 3 or 4 weeks before we get there. But hopefully as that lightens up, maybe stuff like happened in Pennsylvania where they'll start maybe opening up what they call second tier essentials, maybe as what a dealership might fall under, and they let those type of places open up a little bit here and there. But definitely keep an eye on that. I think that's some good news, and you don't see a lot of that sometimes. All you do is hear about the bad. All right, again, I think I went through all the emails and stuff that we're taking a peek at. I made a mistake by accidentally deleting this, so I know some of the people weren't able to make the call. I did record it. I want to make sure, though, and leave this open. I know I see a couple of my dealers on here. Kim also commented some in the comments there, if people in the chat box, if you want to get a hold of her and some actionable insights. She can help you get access there. But again, I'll keep doing these on Wednesdays. At first, I was like, well, depends on how many people. It seems like we have a good core of people that show up on these calls. I think they're very helpful. If any of you guys dealers that are attending this and see any benefits of it, share it. Again, there's no agenda here. It's just trying to help each other out and give some tips and insights and see what's working around there. John Paul, I thank you for your insight. Mike Kavanaugh, if you're still on, the guys at Max Digital, Kim Cox, and of course, any of you dealers. This is the time, as much as we like to jab each other as dealers and compete, this is the time to wrap our arms around each other and support each other to get through all this, because everybody's going to be in the same boat. But always make sure that you're, staying on top, keeping that edge going. I think, again, this is good downtime if people are slow to get a hold of their reps. Learn the back end of autotradercars.com. Even though you're not going to use 80% of it, there might be 10 or 20% in there that you didn't know was in there, and it was really great, and it's something you're going to use, once business opens up. Or there might be something in there. I know a lot of these, and I know Cox, I know cars, there's badging that you can put on cars if you're offering deliveries. They have a lot of tools that help you do everything from front to back to do at-home deliveries. So make sure you reach out to these people that you're spending money with and see what they have to throw at you to help you through this. Before we wrap up here, is anybody you want to chime in? Dealers, any questions you want answered? Managers, vendors? No? All right, we'll wrap this up. I'll do another one next Wednesday, 2 p.m. I would say same bat time, same bat channel, but at least be the same bat time. I'll send out another calendar invite. And again, anybody you think might benefit it, the more the merrier, because we can get more things answered and covered. I like reaching out to you guys prior. I think I emailed everybody yesterday and some people today. Hey, what do you want to cover? I usually get at least a half a dozen to a dozen emails from everybody, kind of seeing what they want to get covered. So take a look out for that. There's some things going on in the chat box. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for coming. And again, guys, give me a call or email if you want any, inventory evaluation, see what we could take a peek at your cars, your photos, your pricing, and see if there's anything that we see a hole there that might help you out. If not, we'll talk next week. Thanks.